Yes, just start off by addressing the release of the Joe Mixon video in the restaurant, in the middle of a altercation and in a reactionary moment. Strikes has a horrible and wrong reaction. Upon seeing that video, the university and I sat down and designed what we thought was discipline, definitely dealt out immediate and significant, strong discipline to Joe with some options. One, he was immediately removed from every team activity, locker room, everything whatsoever to do with the team for an entire season, along with some stipulations moving forward. If he met those, he might have the road or an opportunity to rejoin the team. He was also immediately given a full release to transfer anywhere that he might want to go. What we came up with discipline-wise, I feel at the time, 2.5 years ago, we felt was significant. And fault me if believing that an 18-year-old without prior violent situation whatsoever and an altercation had the wrong and horrible response that he did, that he might have an opportunity moving forward to redeem himself, improve from it, grow from it, and someday possibly be forgiven. That was the intention if he chose to come back, and that's what we had hoped for. It may be wrong in some eyes, in some people's eyes, to give a guy, an opportunity to come back. I think 2.5 years ago, some viewed the tape locally and thought it was fair or appropriate, or to some degree, it was, significant penalty and discipline. 2.5 years later, it's fair to say it isn't enough, and that's positive in that's the way the things have gone in the last 2.5 years, that really the only thing that's ever acceptable anymore is dismissal. We didn't go that route 2.5 years ago. Again, thought that this young man deserved an opportunity moving forward to have a chance to redeem himself and to grow out of it and to be positive out in the community, and that was the intention. So again, if I'm at fault of something, it's hard to give up on these young men that I go in their homes and talk to their families and them about the opportunities to grow here at Oklahoma. And so again, for those who find that unacceptable, I apologize to those people. But also, again, I feel like Joe has moved ahead in a very positive way, and and believe he's really grown and matured from it. It's been hard to see. I accept that, in that he hasn't been able to be out publicly for the most part, mainly because of the issues, civil suits moving forward and attorneys, which that timeline hasn't been worked very well for his favor or ours. The other part of that is we fully expected, when we made our decision in regard to what Joe's discipline would be, expected that video to be released within a week or 2-3 weeks within that month. We had no idea it would go this long, and that is out of our hands as well, and has not been, with the timeline of it all, it has not been worked very well for anybody. But again, those were the intentions. When we first encountered this 2.5 years ago, and have worked past it, and it just, again, comes back to stage with the release of the video here in the last few days. But again, it's something that was dealt with 28, I guess, or 29 months ago.
What was your reaction when you first saw the video?
It was horrible. I hated it. Disliked just as much as hated it as much as anybody did. Absolutely.
Since you made the decision, and Joe made the decision to stay, from that point to now, is there anything you wish you could have done different, or anything you'd like to have seen Joe do different?
Well, I think as much as anything, what would have been positive if he was allowed to speak the last 2 years and people get to know the person that he is. And, and again, for legal reasons and, we could be at fault to some degree as well. It just hasn't worked. But, that and I wish the video had been released immediately because, again, the world's a different place 2.5 years later. And that's positive. I'm there.
Was there any consideration part of Joe staying on the team that ultimately Joe released the video? You have to release the video before you can get back.
Again, I don't know what the legal ramifications are of that with his lawyers and everybody else dealing with it.
Are you saying that, just to clarify, Bob, are you saying that if this had occurred now as opposed to 2.5 years ago, you would have come to a different conclusion?
I think that is fair to say because, well, yes, I do believe I would.
What would that have been?
Well, again, and now as things 2.5 years later, dismissal is really the only thing that's possible, and a young guy having an opportunity to rehabilitate and to have some kind of discipline and come back from it is really not there anymore, and so. And that hopefully that message goes down even to the high school level that these things are, just unacceptable to any degree, and there's no recovering, I guess, is the, it has been acceptable. What I'm saying, there's no recovering from these incidents really anymore.
That sounds like a zero tolerance policy.
Well, it really has been, for the last. That's how we've been operating. And truth be told, too, I think in the past there was some due process, and 2, 3, 4 years ago that people went through, and if it was deemed innocent or not, nothing there, then you can move forward. And really, that doesn't work anymore. And anymore, if there's, if there's any, any cloud whatsoever or possibility that this may have happened, we're going in a different direction.
You responded to Brenda Tracy, or do you plan to respond to her?
I spoke to Brenda, yes, a few days ago, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
She suggested that she would like she'd like OU to sort of you've got the chance to sort of step out and be a leader in this issue, considering what you've come through. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Sure,
I program.
Yeah, I believe, we can do that. I look forward to, hearing again from Brenda, and I'm sure our, university administration will, our athletic department will as well. But, so, hopefully that can happen.
Met with Joe and President Boren about the punishment. How long did you guys deliberate? And
it wasn't long, but, we were fairly swift in what we felt, the discipline, would be.
How was that decision made?
Just on my recommendation.
We're aware of the terms of his legal plea, the service he had, or behavioral counseling he was forced or agreed to undergo. Can you give us any insight into anything further the university required of him in that regard? Stipulation for his remaining.
Oh, just there were, I'll have to get a list of it, counseling, there were community service hours, counseling, grade issues, and obviously, behavior issues.
The community service and counseling, was that on top of what he had to do legally?
Yes. I believe so, but I'll find that out.
You mentioned that dismissal would be the only option for a guy in your program. But what about guys you're recruiting? If they have any kind of a problem in their past, will you be more hesitant to bring guys in?
Absolutely, and have been actually in the last couple of years. That has happened, and we have dropped or ceased recruiting anytime we've found an issue.
You mentioned grade issues. Was he expected to, have a higher GPA than the rest of the student athletes?
No, it was just more conduct in class, attendance, and just that he's putting forth the effort that needed to, we felt was positive enough.
Any criticism that if he was even a three-star kid, that it wouldn't have been worth your trouble?
Yeah, I understand where people come with that, but let's remember that he had not played a down here when this all occurred and when we made the discipline. And we've had plenty of 4- and 5-star guys not amount to a whole lot here through the years. So, you know, Samaje came in and gained about 1,800 yards that year. So, in the end, I understand where people come with that, but again, I believe in these young men we recruit, and maybe to a fault, and to some degree, and but I believe most coaches do, but again, you know, here we are 2.5 years later, and you can't really do that anymore.
Mixon's future, his draft stock, if you believe the analysts, plummeting. Is this more likely that he might come back and play another year?
You know, I don't know that any of us know that at this point. I mean, Joe hasn't made that determination. I'm sure that's something that he'll consider, you know, after the bowl game and what he feels his future needs to be.
You said you assumed that the tape would be released not long after July 2014, and you wished it had been. Now we're 28 months later. Does this thing finally start to get to move to a resolution or some sort of?
Hopefully.
It seems like we've just had a cloud over the whole
I agree with you. You know, people haven't been able to see, you know, to really, you know, see what Joe as a person is really like, and as well as we've all had to talk around it, you know, and what you're able to say or not, and what the legal, you know, their legal representation back and forth, you know, so hopefully we can start, you know, to move in that direction.
Did you guys, again, ever talk about, because it seemed like once the incident, you knew, or I think everybody understood the civil suit was probably going to be part of this, that part of keeping him meant you were going to have to deal with lawyers and things like that. Did you and Joe and President Bourne ever talk about that when you were figuring out what his punishment would be?
No, you know, I can't say that what his representation, what that was going to mean, was part of what we were, you know, what we felt his discipline needed to be.
Bob, going back to recruiting, how much do you think this will be a topic of conversation in living rooms going forward?
Well, again, I don't know. Again, I do believe, you know, we've got the right steps in place now, you know, as we move forward, and you know, we've probably had as positive and clean a 2 years as we've had off the field issues across the board that we've had since I've been here. So, you know, so it is positive moving forward.
Joe was removed from the team for that year, but in October, I think, he was seen at a pep rally with the team. I'm just curious as to how
yeah, he just came and it was told he shouldn't be there.
Did that happen
It happened just because he heard about it and went and forgot what, you know, what our punishment meant not being with the team, and actually I believe was told to leave.
Bob, can you go in more into you said earlier that if this happened today, that dismissal would be the only way to go. Can you go into why you feel that way now and versus 2.5 years ago when this first happened?
Again, 2.5 years ago, you know, going through all this, I think what was taken into consideration too were all the factors leading up to it, the entire altercation, and you know, so and thought we had a significant penalty and strong penalty, but you know, now it isn't enough. You know, these individuals cannot have a second chance because of there's too much. You know, it's just not acceptable. They know it anymore. You know, we've been told enough, and there's more. We have more meetings and things of that nature that, you know, that instruct and let them know what appropriate behavior is and isn't, and what the consequences are, as well as we do it at an earlier time. I used to have those meetings around two-a-days and when the team's back. Now they're the first things we do in the first few days when anyone comes to our campus. You know, that's just, for instance, some of the measures we've taken that and why that will not be, you know, there will be zero tolerance for it.
Did you watch the video of his police interview or read a story about it? Because I'm curious if that's what he told you happened is what he told police happened.
I've read it, to not at length, but I've for the most part I've read what you're talking about.
Is that what Joe told you back in July 2000?
Yes.
Did you see, how many videos did you and Boren and Joe see? Did you just see the one video?
Just the one.
You didn't see the other two that have come out in recent weeks?
I don't believe so.
Bob, you've been around Joe for 5 days since the video came out. What's his demeanor been like?
He's been really down, for sure. He's deeply affected by it and knew he would be. We all have been. And but his teammates are picking him up, and he's been a great teammate to them. So they're giving it back to him.
Would you be in favor of him publicly reverting back to the incident, apologizing? I know he's apologized in a written
Yes,
statement.
Joe wants to do that, and I believe that'll come. Again, now that all the other issues, civil issues, seem to be cleared up, he wants to do that. So we need to do that.
Your name has been connected to this as much as Joe Mixon's has now, as David's, as Joe's has been. How does it make you feel to know that this is going to be connected to your legacy and that Oklahoma football is going to be associated with that tape indefinitely? Yeah,
it's that's part of it. I knew that when 2.5 years ago. But in the end, if it's easy to just dismiss it or remove a guy and head on down the road. But in the end, too, I may have too strong a commitment to these guys that I recruit, but I always have, and believe in them. And I believe in at that time, a young 18-year-old deserved an opportunity to redeem himself and to improve from it, and to someday possibly be forgiven. And if that can't happen, it can't happen. But that was the intent.
Back at the decision now, do you think that it implicitly condoned violence against women in some way, that he was allowed to stay here and rejoin the team?
Well, again, I don't, hopefully not. But in the end, I'm sure to some degree it does, and I regret that. But in the end, at the time, we felt, it was significant and strong punishment. Again, some people that have seen the entire thing at that time agreed, and others didn't. I understand that. And I always knew that would be, something that everybody would debate.
Bob, you said you wanted to give him an opportunity to redeem himself. How much was your confidence shaken in him when he had the incident with the parking lot attendant? Yeah,
it was unfortunate, and we talked about it, and it's unacceptable, So that hasn't been what we've seen here, for 3 years.
You said he had zero tolerance when this first happened, this incident. He would be back on a zero tolerance basis. Clearly, that didn't cross that threshold. What would cross the threshold where?
Well, you can name a variety of things. I can't sit here and go through what might and might not be, So.
Sure what he was going to do. Is it worth suggesting that it's in the interest of both parties for him to move on, and you guys to, in a sense, move on and sort of separate from sort of make way without each other?
Well, again, that's to be considered, sure.
Back to Joe, publicly speaking, would that come soon?
Possibly.
So you have
we've talked about it, yeah.
Bob, you said that what he told you was consistent with what's on that video. I'm curious if you had talked to the other guys that were around that night, Mark Andrews and a couple others, Micaiah, about that before you made the decision on punishment.
Yeah, I didn't detail or write everything down that each guy said, but it was very similar to what Joe had to say.
Joe seemed walking away after the incident happened, and I might be wrong, but it looked like in the video some of the guys, some of his teammates walked out as well. You're disappointed that they didn't maybe have a different reaction to what happened there?
Sure, but it's also maybe fair to say that some already were attending to that person ahead of them. But, again, it's hard to tell what a reaction is going to be in an instant.